Hang on. Welcome all.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hello there.
So, as the title suggests, I have collaborated with a few voice actors from the Engines of Sodor finale trilogy. The four of us are going to review each episode. We'll go through each film. We'll even talk about the build-up beforehand and the aftermath afterwards. So we're going to talk over things like the audition, Tarnished Legacy. We'll do that in two parts. The first part will be no spoilers. The second part will be spoilers. So when we get to that section, those who haven't seen the story, which for my audience, I don't think they will have, then that's probably the time to tune out, watch them, and then come back when this is not live and listen to what we have to say. The Phantom Saboteur and Wrath of the Rails, and then of course we'll evaluate our final thoughts. But before we actually do get onto that, there's another segment that MrAthehedgehog wanted to talk about. But before we do get to that, I am going to introduce our guests. So apart from the one who's got the biggest role, state your name and your character.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Michelina, and I voice Mavis in the Engines of Sodor finale.
Hello everyone, I'm MrAthehedgehog, Adam, and I voice Bear from the TEOS as finale.
And because our final guest voices one of the spoiler characters, you can't necessarily reveal who he is at this stage, but just state who you are, who your name is.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. My name is Callum, aka MrMerlinFan02, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Great. So, I guess we should get into it. Before we actually get into the finale, which is like the main part of the stream, I'm gonna hand this over to Adam, who I imagine he's not done something like this before, and he must feel this is the time to talk about Thomas 1 Edward 2 Henry 3's series. So I'm allowing that. So without further ado, I'll let him take over.
Thank you, Matt. So, with TEOS, aka the Engines of Sodor, that has been running for about 6 years, if anyone can actually believe that. And it is actually one of the greatest series I've actually watched for the whole 6 years. Though I've grown into it about when it was reaching the end of its series, but I thought it was actually pretty good of a series. But I have to say this. With everyone here, what was your first impressions when finding Thomas 1 Edward 2 Henry 3 his channel? Like, what did you first think of him?
I think for me, the writing is very similar to like the classic a TV series, like seasons 1 through 7, but a very more. That's not proper English, Mika. It has a more mature take on it at the same time. It's like a very similar writing style to the TV series, but it does have like more mature themes in there as well, and it definitely showcases like how much the characters have grown, if that makes sense.
For me,
Yeah,
I think.
oh, sorry.
Well, I guess. Wait, I'll let you speak because you're kind of responding to what Mika said.
Yeah. Yeah, so with the whole series, when I first stumbled upon his channel, his very early work was more, I suppose, in lack of words to describe it, juvenile handwriting. Like he usually did adult jokes or swearing for no apparent reason, which I can look over. It was his early work, and if you take out that, his episodes are actually very good. But I think maybe it was my very judgmental mind when I first first looked upon him, but I kind of didn't like his voice. I mean, yeah, I was very judgmental when I was younger, but now I can look past his voice and think, yeah, that's actually very good. Like he has one of those iconic voices where you can instantly tell that's him. If you can actually know what I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I get you. I get you.
So, I think what I'll also do when answering this question is say how I came across T1, E2, H3. So I first actually looking for YouTube poops, which I was watching that sort of stuff before I got back in the fandom. But yeah, I saw about 3 of them, including well, I won't go over the names, but I enjoyed them. But that kind of wasn't the point. Wasn't a proper introduction to it. How I actually got into his content was I was subscribed to The Real Xbox Nerd at the time, and he guest voiced in one of his specials. And I was blown away by Revenge of the Ghost Train, which I'll talk a bit more later. But yeah, I watched more of his series, and again, you kind of hit the nail on the head for in terms of describing his series. But I think in the way I would have worded it is there's some like adult themes within his episodes, and content-wise, I rate it.
That makes sense. What
Yeah, I
about
think
you, Callum? Callum?
Oh yeah. Well, in my opinion on his channel, when I first stumbled upon it, I was very taken aback because, of course, like looking at like the more adult themes of how he obviously presented his channel, but then as I started like looking at the videos, I was like, oh, okay, he's doing a more adult take to Thomas in a way. Well, that's what I think.
Yeah. So yeah, he had like a rough start, I think we can all agree on that. But once he finally found himself, like past season 2 and season 3, we've all grown to actually like him. Okay, so next question.
I actually, as you probably guessed, I wasn't really around during his, I guess as you call it, weaker stage. So I myself haven't been able to like witness the transformation, but I can certainly see how it is from your guys' point of view.
Yeah, I kind of disagree, like with the weaker stage part of it, because I enjoyed like the whole series like as a whole and like each episode equally. I didn't really see like a quote unquote like lesser episode in a way, because I thought they were all very enjoyable and very strong, and there would be times where there would be like something that's really really relatable, like how like a character would like deal with like anxiety or depression and all that sort of thing, and that sort of thing is not normally touched on Thomas and Friends generally, because it's a kid show. But being able to see like that sort of thing and find something that you can really gravitate towards and relate to, that was something that was very important to me. So I really enjoyed like how much heart was in this series, like from the very beginning.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I admit I wasn't really in his early stage either. I think I only watched his season 1 and season 2 stuff when season 3 was still brand new. So I was more looking at his most viewed videos. But yeah, he did swear. I mean, quite a lot, but at least he didn't go too far into going beyond the going beyond the boundaries of the S word, which
Yeah.
is the English word for Scheiße.
Hmm.
For those who know they're German.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anything else you guys like to add?
Well, not necessarily at this stage.
Yeah.
I believe you've got a few more questions for us.
Yeah. Question 2. What was the first episode or special you watched of his?
Yes, so the first actual special I watched was the first thing overall was like the YouTube poops. So I think first one I either watched was I don't really remember the names, but it was I do remember watching the one with Bill and Ben and Boko's debut, the Donald and Douglas, 2 episodes with Donald and Douglas in. But as for my proper introduction that I stated earlier, Revenge of the Ghost Train was the first special I actually watched. And if you're going to ask what I think of it later, which probably I can't necessarily see that in your line of questions, but so I guess I can say it right now. I was blown away by it. A ghost story can be very easy to get wrong, especially if it ends with a capturing the ghost, which this one did. But I think the way it was written, I enjoyed it, and I remember when the Real Xbox Nerd was promoting it via Twitter, and the voice acting had me on board throughout. And I guess, yes, so seeing as the question says or rather than and, my answer is going to be Revenge of the Ghost Train.
All right. For me, first episode I watched was Mike Takes the Road, which I think was season 1, episode 5, where Jock leaves some cement on the ground. Mike gets derailed, and then he has to take the road to go back to Oldsborough. Very
yeah, I remember that one.
episode, I'd say, yeah. A few, swear words that didn't really need to be there, but I think it was a quite a funny episode, especially when Enterprising Engines actually voiced Mike, as that's my first take of him. First special I watched was actually I think the NWR origins of the fourth one where Gordon and Alfred fight, the disgrace of the LNER, I think it was called.
Yeah, I actually watched. I watched that and a couple of the others of the NWR origins the other day, about a few days ago. So it's quite fresh in my mind.
And not sure if this one was my first two, but I might have been having like a phase against these type of Steam engines. So when I saw this thumbnail and then title, I was like, yes, I had to click on it. But I think it was called the Sodor Garrett, where it had Will, Corey, and that middle one too. Basically, his adaptation of the Sodor Garrett in his series, which I thought,
really?
yeah. How about you, Mika or Callum? What was your first specials or episodes you watched of his?
I think the first thing I saw was probably the first season of NWR Origins. I think that was my first introduction. But then again, it was like 2, maybe 3 years ago that I stumbled on T1E2H3. So
3 years, I think. Yeah.
something like that, yeah. And my memory is kind of hazy, and I'm also kind of sick, full disclosure. So that kind of makes it even more difficult to kind of remember because my mind is like so foggy right now. But I think it was the first season of NWR Origins that really introduced me to his channel and his series as a whole. And then I've been kind of hooked ever since.
Well, well,
I think
For
we've
my
left
first
Callum out of the
episode-
chat quite a bit.
that's all right. So my first episode of The Angels of Sodor was actually the blame game, where Duncan was obviously complaining. Handel crashed into his trucks. Then they blamed him to Sam.
Yeah,
Then they blamed Bulgy. It was a very funny episode.
Yeah, especially where especially the part of where Dunk just rammed into the back of Bulgy
Oh yeah.
to that shop.
That's funny.
But yeah. Next question. How did you guys get into watching his series? Like,
So the engines of Sodor, right?
yeah, The Angels of Sodor. Like, was there, after watching the first episode, what made you want to come back to his series to watch more? If that makes sense, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Because for me, I started watching like his NWR Oranges, the Slopes of Coldy Fell, and the Most Famous Engine, and all those, well, specials as they are, they were actually all very well written. The Slopes of Coldy Fell was more interesting as, well, I don't think anyone has actually tried to make more stories about the mountain engines. So seeing more about the mountain engines like Coldy, the Ghost of Godred, and Patrick, all that was very well for his series. NWR Origins, well, we all know that one was a great success, showing all of Thomas, Edward, Henry, James, Gordon, Alfred's, and Croven's backstory. And the Most Famous Engines, where Croven redeemed himself. That's where I think I finally came to like his series and wanted to come back and see more of his.
Yeah, I'm a similar boat to you. I found myself watching the specials before I actually got into his Engines of Sodor series. So Revenge of the Ghost Train, NWR Origins, and Night Express to Vickerstown. I thought they were good. They were very good stories for NWR Origins. They were adapted very well. and that kind of got me interested in seeing what his main series was about.
Who's next?
I think the first episode that came out whilst as I was a subscriber would have been, I think, isn't it called The Ghost Tale of Timothy?
Ah, that's very near the end. Season 5, episode 8, I think it was.
Yeah. I think that might have been the first Engines of Sodor episode that came out whilst I was a subscriber.
Yeah, for me, that must have been like after the backstory where Diesel told how and why he stayed on Sodor, which was season 3, episode 8. So the beginning of season 4, that must have been when I first saw his new video when he's uploaded it. The Great Heist, where it involved Boko and some runaway burglars, something like that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Mika? What made you more intrigued into his series?
I think for me, it almost felt like it kind of felt like a continuation of like the series, like pre Big World, Big Adventures, as well as the Railway series, because it was just very, very clever and felt almost timeless in a way, like on top of like the mature themes and adult language and that sort of thing. It still felt very similar to like Wilbur and Christopher Audrey's writing of the stories. It just, I don't know. I guess for me, it just felt very cohesive and felt very oh, what's the word I'm looking for? It gave a lot of respect and cohesiveness to the Thomas franchise as a whole. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, for me, it was just like, well, of course, when I first watched the Blame Game, I thought, okay, this is interesting, really interesting. And then, of course, it just went from there because, of course, I started watching this in like 2014. So, like, a lot had happened beforehand. So I just watched them and watched them and watched them. And I was like, yeah, this is a really good series.
Okay, next question. This one, I mean, I think some of us may have answered, but basically, what is your favorite episodes and or specials? For me, you start, Matt.
You know, it's very, very hard not to pick the ones from the finale, and I could well go with Tarnished Legacy or Wrath on the Rails, but for the sake of being different, I think Revenge of the Ghost Train might be my favorite. Perhaps no, I think maybe Night Express to Vicarstown's slightly behind Revenge of the Ghost Train, but I think other competitors would be. I was about to. I mean, the first 3 episodes of MWR Origins started well, but I think for that series, I've probably got to go for Gordon's and Oliver's episodes, especially Oliver's.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I definitely see where Matt is coming from with that. I would say one of my favorites would be The Search for Smudger and that one special, because it really kind of like built on like Bertram's life and everything, because he was heavily underutilized in the television series. Like he he like only appeared once and did not say anything. So being able to kind of like build on top of a character that was very rarely used in the series was really interesting, and it was really enjoyable and very heartfelt.
I realized I didn't actually answer my favorite episode from the Engines of Sodor series. So my favorite episode's probably got to be, and I think now Mika touched on Bertram, this would be a good example of him. My favorite episode's probably got to be the Attack of the Railway Pirates. I think that was an exciting story to watch. Bertram was funny.
Oh yeah, he was hilarious.
Sahan was I guess he was a bit, his character transformation was pretty entertaining, and I felt the stakes while watching that video. And then I love the line. I think Fitzkins in it is a very good, is brilliant as a villain, and I love the line at the end when he says, "I would have got away with it as well if it weren't for you meddling engine." I know it didn't sound like that exactly, but the line I certainly remember. Although I like the Great Railway Heist as well that you mentioned, and I have rewatched Oliver's Tiny Ale, and Diesels and Dragons on quite a few occasions, but I think Attack of the Railway Pirates is my favourite. So from one of the earlier years.
All right. Before we get into mine, what about yours, Callum?
Well, for me, special. I mean, it has to be, as we've said, The Search for Smudger was just, it was just brilliant, honestly. And for
I liked it as well.
Yeah, and for single episode, it's a tough one. I'd have to say Revolutionary Redemption.
That's the episode I was thinking of. Yeah.
I think that was a good way to transform Diesel from villainous to a good-hearted engine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, my top 3 or 4 episodes are Mike Takes the Road, being funny, creative, and all that. The Tale of Two Green Engines, the ones where Matthew and Clive return to Sodor.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we all know about Neil's story of how he was shipped to. No, they were all shipped to India.
I
Neil
enjoyed
was
watching Clive and Matthew before that, like when they were doing like their other bits of work and like before they got found.
Yeah. And the last 2, which are episodes 9 and 10, are a turning point for Edward and the end of a line for Edward, where it's thought that Edward might go into retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that was really good.
I know exactly the story.
Because that one did actually, hit the nail in the head for the coffin, because it did actually make us think: is Edward or most of the Sodor engines too old to work? Like, imagine this alternate universe where Edward actually does retire to Ulstead Castle. But anyway, my favourite specials are, of course, the NWR Origins, because the first one, like Thomas to Oliver. The Most Famous Engine, that's another good one. The Slopes of Cobbledy Fell, because they were the only ones to featureize the Cobbledy Fell engines. And of course, as we already said, The Search for Smudger for being quite creative. You okay, Matt?
Picks.
So, next one. This one is quite hard. Even I had a hard time picking these out. But what was your least favorite episodes? Because personally, to me, none of his episodes or even specials are actually terrible. They're not bad at all. Every single one of them is good in their own right. But I can't be biased, and I have to pick out some that I don't like. So my top 3 that I don't like are Season 1, Episode 2, Gordon Goes Swimming, where he tries to beat his cousin Mallard's speed record of going 127 miles per hour and ends up in the sea. The Creature, because interesting, but it was just some guy dressed up as Bigfoot. And Special Engines. Special Engines was actually unique or fun for Toby because he turned 100, but that episode doesn't really involve around Toby. It mainly revolves around Bill and Ben trying to figure out why it's Toby's special day. Entertaining, but all of them entertaining, but they just had slight nitpicks of mine that I don't like.
That's valid.
How about you guys? Do you have any episodes you don't like? Or specials?
Nothing comes to mind just yet. The way I'm sort of determining this is what's the episodes where I'm not going to revisit or I'm just put off by seeing it. But I don't have a standout answer just yet, so I guess we can go on to Adam or Callum.
What about you, Mika or Callum?
Well, for me, I just have to say, off the boat, it'd be Gordon Goes Swimming. I just didn't like it.
I don't know if I have a least favorite episode. I don't think I do.
Yeah, because like I said, it's quite a tough decision for his series because they are all each good in their own way. Had to try and find some excuse for reasons why these 3 of mine that are quite, but not bad, just not entertaining as the others.
Yeah, they're not as strong. They're still good, but they're not as strong as like some others that we have mentioned earlier. But
I guess the one I'll go with, I guess I mainly will agree with you, but I would say that one that hasn't been brought up, which often gets referred to as the worst, would be like the expansion story of Haunted Henry. It doesn't really hold up compared to when it initially came out.
I mean, I can understand why it's bad, but I don't think it's that bad.
Yeah.
Because it's just adaptation.
It's just not it doesn't have anything that like sets it apart.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, I can understand that. This is another slight gripe. Now, this one, I don't blame him at all. He probably got harassed by a bunch of fans, but I don't like all his episodes of the second NWR Origins against Percy, Duck, Toby, Mavis, and Boko, and Bill and Ben. Like I said, they're not terrible, but they just weren't the Origins story I thought they were going to have.
I can understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
Because
I suppose with some of them, it was like a missed opportunity to expand on characters.
Yeah, because take Mavis's one.
Because
I think, hers is already established in the books and in the TV show. I don't think we really needed to see the very beginning of how she arrived to Sodor to the quarry.
In fact, Thomas 1 Edward 2 Henry 3 even stated himself in a Q&A a few years back that he didn't do, at the time, he didn't do episodes for Percy, Toby, and Duck because we already knew how they got to the island, and there didn't seem to be much room to really set up.
Yeah. I mean, of course, the Mavis's story, of course, I think the only saving grace from it is, of course, from the actress Mika.
Oh gosh. Pardon me. I honestly really did enjoy doing the episode. I mean, I can see. Sorry, I'm having kind of a coughing fit right now.
I remember seeing the comments that no one was criticizing the voice acting of the video. It was more just so the setup of how that story was made.
Yeah, because Mika was the only saving grace out of that whole episode. She did a fantastic job. Isn't that right, Mika?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And on that note, I realized I hadn't really introduced myself for as you know, I'm Matt, and I voice Toby and another character which I'll get onto later.
All right. Oh yeah, any other gripes before we go to the second to last question?
Not really, no.
All right, next
for Toby's and WR Origins, my voice acting was average. I think I captured the moaning well, but other than that, it was kind of. I think at the time I wasn't like at my best in terms of like physical well-being, so my voice sounded kind of not at its best. So yeah, which kind of did lead on to me getting criticized.
I don't think it was that bad.
But I do think I think I definitely did better in Mavis's origin. In fact, when I did the audition, I did a few characters, did Gordon James, and then to Toby, which was like the main one that was being advertised. And like when I did it, I did his voice from the Mavis episode, and that's sort of how I got cast. So yeah, I think I did a good job from in the Mavis episode. The Toby one, bang average. Percy, I did all right. I had one line in that one. How do you think I did in the Mavis episode?
You did good. You did really, really good.
Yeah, you did great.
I think because that's kind of. I remember someone saying that I improved, but when reading it, I thought it was quite ironic because I actually did voice my lines for the Mavis episode before I did the Toby one, which probably yeah, I certainly stretched my vocal cords for when Toby was losing his shit.
Mood. Yeah, and you also kind of had the upper hand in a way because you got to do Toby's episode before Mavis's, and for me, this was like the first time that I ever done any voice acting like at all. So I had no idea what I was doing, but yeah, you did a good job, dude.
Thank you. I believe we're getting a bit out of field. So what's the next question?
Okay, second to last question. This one is quite a unique question for myself. I don't know if you lot thought about this one, but were there any characters you wish played a more bigger role in his series? I say that because he's more focused upon like Thomas and Henry and Gordon, rarely like any of the other characters.
Well, it is a bit. There's a big selection of characters, so it's kind of hard to really to dedicate a lot of episodes for each respective character. But I think everyone that I would have wanted to be like within the stories, I think yes. Perhaps maybe Ari and Bert could have got their own story rather than playing second fiddle to Diesel 10. But other than that, I don't have too much complaints.
Yeah, because for me, now first of all, I think this is quite important to say because I don't think I've seen this in any other series, but the balance between narrow gauge episodes and the standard gauge episodes are perfect in his series. You definitely know the characters from each series, but yeah, the characters I wished he more made time for, which is kind of ironic for the title. It's called The Engines of Sodor, not the Thomas Henry James Gordon of Sodor.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed that he never used Emily once in his episodes? She only got one speaking role in season 3, episode 7, and that was it.
It was more or less just she was just used for like physical appearances. But I certainly understand why he didn't want to use her.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, another one was Bear himself. He was more commonly used in season 1 and 2. After season 3, he just disappeared until the Wrath of Sodor, where I got to play him. Guessing that he
also made an appearance in Gordon Pops In because he has an important moment in that story.
Oh yeah, that. The other one was the Garrett himself, or their selves. He was only used in one episode and one speaking line, and that was it. I sort of understand why he didn't want to do it because he said that the middle. What was the middle boiler called?
Oh, Grady.
Grady, that's it. He said Grady. He made him more. What's a polite word saying? Mentally challenged. Is that the word? Like he tried to make it more like.
Yeah.
He tried to make it like mentally challenged people are more stronger than you think, which I think he did leave a comment in the comment section saying that he apologized for it and didn't want to do it again. But I think it kind of would have been nice to see more of the Garrett, even if the what was the engine's name called again?
Grady.
Grady. Even if Grady was mentally challenged, because it does show that they are very strong people.
I honestly thought Grady sounded like Pee Wee Herman. Is that just me?
Yeah, I definitely sort of heard that in some cases, yeah. This one's actually a strange one on my list, but the more I thought about it, the more it didn't really make sense, like in his series. But Croven and Diesel 10. First of all, Diesel 10. In his very early stages, he was more of a figment of an imagination. If you've seen How Diesel Stole Christmas and Haunted Henry, they were more like nightmares. But it wasn't until season 4, season 4, episode 5, where he was scared by the Chinese dragon. That's when he actually became a character. And then he just became the main villain, or one of the main villains who redeemed themselves. Or was in something else. Wait, was it? No, I'm probably thinking of another series or something. Sorry, but yeah, he only had one main episode in the main series of TEOS. Craven, though his backstory is good, like he was the first agent to be on Sodor, was sent away, about to be scrapped, then became the governor's private agent, and then he learned by the Flying Scotsman to be more open-minded. I kind of wish we saw more about him. Did he make any more friends? Then, because we all know him as that arrogant, pumped-up jerk who sometimes abuses his coach Helen. So I kind of like to see more about what he would have done.
Good point.
And the last one on my list is D199, aka Ted. Because he was in the first season 8 and 9, was it? Or season 2? Yeah, season 2 of 8 and 9, and he redeemed himself, proved himself worthy to the Scottish Agents, and then didn't use him again until the most famous Agents one, where all the when all the bad characters became good, over with Craven. So yeah, those are just a few characters I picked out who I wished had more character development or more stories about them.
I can see where you're coming from with that.
But yeah, any thoughts you want to say, Matt or Callum or Mika?
I think not really.
Not really. I think you made some really good solid points, and I think we can all unanimously agree with that.
Okay. And the last question on my list. This one, we don't know if he's going to return yet in 2021. But if he does return, what do you think he will do in his new series?
I'll be honest, I don't have much of an answer for this. So in that case, I think this is a good opportunity for me to just go for a bit of a toilet break, but do feel free to carry on without me because I haven't got too much to think about. And if I do come back with thoughts, then I'll freely share them.
Okay. Yeah, sure, that's good. Okay. This is what I had in mind of his series, if he returned. I have a theory that he may not use, the trains anymore. He may use either, models, like other model creators to use. And, as for his style, his new style may be a bit hard, because I think every single one of us adapts it from the TV show and the books, right?
Yeah.
So I have a theory he may do a Victor Tanzik style, where he creates his own universe, in a way.
Yeah, he might do that.
Because how Victor Tanzik did it was that the TV show and the books are completely separate. Because, there was that whole Northeasters and LMS engines having their rivalry, like the Star Tugs and the Zeros. But yeah, not to say he would copy any of that. It would just be a sort of theory of what he could do if he does return.
Yeah.
But yeah, any small ideas or theories you like to add?
Not too sure if I'm honest. He hasn't really given much detail onto what he's going to do.
Yeah, that's only if he does return, of course, because being away for an entire year could change a person. So he could return, or he could decide to be, well, not very the case of leave the fandom. He could just not make any series or any stories anymore, but still be in touch with the fandom until he thinks it's his time to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get
I
you.
mean, the Engines of Sodor series itself, that I see no continuation from that. But the special, it's a possibility. I can't reckon I think it will happen, but there's room for. I can. Anyone's willing to believe it. I'm not going to fault them too much.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, if he does return in either 2020, late, or the 2021, I think we will all, welcome his return.
Oh yeah, of course.
But yeah, that's all my questions for his own series, of course.
So, okay, thank you, Adam. Before we get to the actual finale of the trilogy, something I was expecting to talk about in this series is how some of us got involved. So I think I'll go to this section. In the meantime, I think when we get to the actual talking about the finale, I think that's going to need another promotion because our viewing numbers have dropped down. But okay, I think I'll start with how I got involved. So I would have I came on to the T1 E2H3 train in about 2018. I reckon my voice probably fits Oliver best because I'm the Great Western area, so is he. He has the accent. It's not stereotypically in the same way Dux is. Because, yeah, even though I'm Bristolian, I've got a bit of West Midlands in me. But getting back on track, as he was getting the NWR Origin series going, he came out with an audition video which he had the roles of Toby, Mavis, and Henrietta, and he also had some specific guidelines to what he wanted. So, for example, we wanted Toby to be British, and he stated clearly that he wanted the other two to be female, and it would be better if Henrietta also had a British actress. So I went for Toby because I kind of wanted to be involved in the series, not necessarily knowing I was going to get the role. So what I did, and this is why, and at the time, until I got to Wrath on the Rails, I didn't have a Zoom microphone. I just used my laptop. So that's why the quality of my voice didn't quite reach the heights until Wrath of the Rails. But anyway, for the audition, what I decided to do was voice a few characters. So I voiced Gordon. I said a line from Gordon, and then I did a line from James. And as I was doing the video, I had I stated each character I was voicing as with a slideshow colors and the name. And then I voiced Toby, and then I got a comment on my unlisted video saying, "Congratulations, you've won the role of Toby." And I provided my voice in 3 episodes, and yeah, that's mine. What about for yours? I believe I'm not sure about yours, Adam, but I know that the rest of us made our debut in NWR Origins. So, Mika, tell us about how you got involved in the series.
It's a funny story. So originally when Revenge of the Ghost Train was coming out, the auditions for that, funny enough, I was like 19 when I did this, so I was young-ish. So I had no idea what I was doing. I auditioned for Percy because I'm thinking, hey, Percy, very young and youthful and squeaky. So I tried that, and I'm like, and then I didn't get picked for it, obviously. But I was like, you know what? It's fine. He got a good guy for it. I'm happy for him. And then they did auditions for season 2 of NWR Origins, and I saw that Mavis was on there. I was like, ooh, I'll try that. I doubt I'll get picked, but I'll try it out, kind of see what happens. I like full on like ad-libbed my whole audio track. I don't even remember what the guidelines were for it. I mean,
I think that the main priority was have a female voicing it.
yeah. I just kind of went all out. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have a fun time. I'll post it online. It'll give me a good laugh. If I get picked, great. If not, great. I'm okay either way. And then I found out I got picked through Twitter because I like made an account specifically to see if I got the part or not. And I was like kind of like looking through, and I was like on the way home from some sort of like evening thing, and I'm like, I like texted my mom. I'm like, "Hey mom, I got Mavis." She's like, "What? That's so cool!" And then I called my boyfriend, and he's like, "I love you, Wackadoodle. I'm proud of you." Yeah. It's really awesome that my family and my boyfriend is like supportive of like what I do in the fandom, because my family loves Thomas, and my boyfriend really enjoys like seeing me like act and stuff. So being able to show them these things I'm working on is more than I could ever ask for.
And Callum, you actually voiced a supporting character, and there wasn't actually any public advertising from Thomas 1 Edward 2 Henry 3 about any characters needed. So tell us about how you got a part of that.
Well, what actually happened was, obviously, I auditioned in Revenge of the Ghost Train for the 2 characters. Of course, didn't get the role. Then it came to, I think it was like November, and I saw like obviously Toby, Henrietta, and Mavis. But then I saw there was like mainland characters, and I thought, okay, let's give this a go. So I did Toby, and then I did the scene from, what did I do again? Oh yes, Dirty Work, or Diesel's Devious Deed, when the engines had confronted Duck. So I thought, okay, let's do it. Let's send them off, and let's see how it goes. Kept my fingers crossed, and then on the morning, I think, or evening in America, when it was released, I looked at my phone, I saw my name, it was under Cornwall, and I was like, wow, what a nice thing to wake up to.
Yep, that episode Odom with Duck on the Great Western, that could have been a good opportunity to take to like put me in, because of course I live in Bristol, which is like within that area. But what we got is what we got, and I really like Brian's voice in that episode.
Oh yeah, that was a very good voice.
And Adam, were you in any video before Wrath on the before the finale came?
For me, no. I've only really starred in the Wrath of the Rails. I think I've seen the audition video of the second NWR Oranges, but I think I may either have been too frightened of rejection, or I was just wasn't really feeling of lending my voice to anyone at the time. so I didn't publish a interview. But when the last one, Wrath of the Rails, came out,
Yeah,
I kind of thought I had to do that, as it's his last video, now or never.
Yeah, I'm about to get onto the audition section, so shall I get onto that now? Okay.
You can do it.
Yeah, so now we're on to the finale trilogy itself. So just before the trilogy actually kicked off, there was a small teaser in the end of the Wrath of the Boulder. I can't remember if Wrath of the Boulder was part 1 or part 2, but that storyline, it ended with like there wasn't really much credits, but yeah, I'll call it an end credits scene where Diesel 10 goes over somewhere in the scrapyard. He's shocked and he's like, "Master!" And by then that kind of leads on to the finale trilogy. And at this point, most of the viewers would have been speculating that this would be P.T. Boomer. But let's be honest, it was more likely to have been Nigel Farage.
Yeah, and he made it clear that the events of Thomas and the Magic Railroad wouldn't be canon to a series as well. So I highly doubted that it would be P.T. Boomer anyway.
And P.T. Boomer didn't even make the film, so what?
True.
Yeah, that is true.
So yeah. Anyway, so the next stage that got into the trilogy was the creator himself, Thomas 1 Edward 2 Henry 3, had just made an audition video with a list of characters. So on there was Diesel 10, Ari, Bert, Harold, Bertie, Bear, and I think there was a 7th one as well. But if you remember, just tell me. But oh yeah, there was a couple of lawyers that he had on there. And he also went on to talk that he's got a few human roles which he cannot reveal for spoiler reasons, but he'll message the actress if they got it. But before I get on to Adam and Callum, I guess what I shall say is when I saw this, I was certainly interested. I think Diesel 10, I don't think I could have done that one. Ari and Bert, I was certainly interested in doing. The rest, I wasn't so sure of how I would approach it from an acting point of view. Yeah, so Ari probably would have been the character I'd have most likely auditioned for. Well, it probably would have done a variety of character voices in case I got one of the human roles. But I decided in the end, with like the timing I got, plus the fact, and more the fact that the equipment I had wasn't really good enough, I decided not to audition. But even though I'll get on to the next bit, the even though later. But I'll go. So, Adam, you auditioned for one of these, but both Adam and Callum did. But Adam, you won one of the roles to you as you said earlier, you got the role of Bear. So, what was your approach to the audition? And what did you imagine Bear's voice would be like? And also, did you specifically go for Bear, or tell us what happened?
Well, with voicing on the auditions video, I did basically do a handful of voices because it was like a lucky dip. Hopefully, I would get one of these roles. So I tried to do Arian Burt, which will just sound like this. I did Harold. Which was basically what was it? I think railways are slow. They're quite old and quite outdated. I also tried Bertie, which was sounds like this. And then I tried Bear. Bear was awkward in a way because me personally, I don't have a bear voice. Bear and Boko, in my opinion, I think they should sound more intelligent than me, not one who just sounds like, "Hey, oh, I think this should happen." Basically, that's just a slightly deeper voice of my normal voice. But when I got that role, I was like, I was in class, completely bored out of my mind. My phone went off. Bling. I looked through my phone and it said, "Congratulations, you're voicing Bear." And I was like, okay. Not going to question it.
We'll go on to like your thoughts behind like kind of your approach to voice acting Bear himself in a bit later, but what do you think in terms of how he should sound? What was your oh no, you answered that one, didn't you?
Well, my voice of Bear is very similar to my Boko voice that I play for NWR 58 series. Basically, they're the exact same voice. And
I got the answer.
I don't think I sound like Bear or Boko. I more think a Bear Boko voice should sound like yours, Matt. You sound more deeper and intelligent than I do.
Right.
But yeah, that's just what my thoughts were.
And when I'm like rewatching part 2 with my parents, in build up for the third film, I do remember my mum asking me if when Bear was speaking was me, and I said no. But Callum, I'm aware you're very much itching to talk about how the audition went for you. So, without revealing who you got, what happened?
Well, how this goes is that obviously I saw the audition video and I was like, right, this is probably the final chance to get a role in this series, so I might as well give it a go. So what I did was I auditioned for who did I audition for again? Oh yeah, Diesel 10, which my Diesel 10 voice is like menacing, I'm going to get your puffball. Sorry. And Arian Birch, like really like gruff, like deep voices for them. And then of course Bertie, this is sort of Bertie. And then obviously when he said about the human roles, about to act out a scene, so I did Grandpuff. So then I obviously sent them off, and he actually messaged me back saying that they were actually really impressive. And I was like, oh, okay, didn't expect that. And then of course when it was revealed, obviously I can't say who it is, but let's just say, again, it was another nice thing to wake up to.
Because before we actually did this, during the preparation, you said that we're going to love your reaction to what happened, and if you think it's appropriate to answer it later when we reveal who your character is, then cool. But what was your reaction?
Well, without obviously giving it away, I was like, oh my God. Literally. But yeah, that was my reaction to that.
Okay, so now let's get on to so later it was so later on the result there was a trailer that came out and the results were revealed who was playing who, and then comes the part 1, Tarnished Legacy. So for this section, I'll cover like a spoiler-free review because I think this is of the 3 films. This is the only one you can talk about without treading into spoiler territory. So that's why only this story we're going to talk non-spoilers. So yeah, here we go. So Tarnished Legacy reflects kind of something you probably wouldn't have necessarily thought of if you were a younger viewer, and it centers around the Fat Controller and someone called Otto Grubb. The story stars Thomas 1 Edward 2 Henry 3 as the Fat Controller, Gordon, a court judge, and a few other small roles. The German of Sodor as Otto Grubb. I might have these the wrong way round, but
Matt?
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 Oh no, it froze.
Oh dear, what's happened here?
No, Matt.
Still there, buddy?
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing some technical difficulties at the moment.
Well then, I mean, I have a cast list
Make
up
product-
here. Oh wait, hey, what?
Hang on.
Did he come back?
I don't know.
Matt,
No.
no,
No!
Oh dear.
no! Ah, he died. Oh no,
Guys,
Matt!
what do we do?
I don't know.
I don't-
Improvise.
The show must go on. The show must go on. Wait.
Oh.
Okay,
Is that-
I'm back.
Oh, hang on.
Sorry about that technical difficulties. Okay, so just let me ask, what was the last thing you heard from me?
I think we're talking about the cast. You mentioned the German of Sodor as Otto Grubb.
Yeah, and yes, and the other main characters, I'd say Blue. And do say if I get this the wrong way round. Blue Smoke Productions as the investigator, and the Blue Single as a lawyer.
I have a cast list up here. I'm looking at T1E2H3's wiki page.
Well,
I found that.
we'll get back to that
Huh?
in a bit, but the story itself. So Otto Grubb, it starts with Otto Grubb as he's ranting about how he thinks that Sir Topham, the way Sir Topham is running his railway is just all wrong, and he goes on for a rant. He goes public. And the first half kind of mainly reflects how the humans and the engines are thinking more about that. And then later on, Duck is taking a train to Wellsworth, which this does get shown in the trailer, the teaser trailer. He has a smooth run until he gets to about Tidmouth Holt, I believe, where there was I think as he got near the signal box, a misleading signal displayed, which ended up sending him, which then allowed him to go on. It sent him on, and he went on to a different line. He crashed into a train that was being headed by Gordon, and it puts a real dent and big pressure on the Fat Controller and his railway's future. Otto Grubb actually is on board and he's injured, and then there's a fatality to a guard, which is mentioned earlier, who like had a small role earlier.
Mhm.
He ends up dying, which this might come across as a spoiler, but I don't think it is, because this isn't a character that's appeared before, and he's only had about 2 lines.
Exactly, and it's a key point in the plot summary as well.
Yes. So the main bit after it is it's kind of main focusing around the reflection on how the engines and the Fat Controller himself are thinking about it, and you later find out that Sir Richard Topham Hatt's future's pretty much hanging by a thread, and then he and his company, the Northwestern Railway, has been sued by Otto Grubb, and they go to court for a trial. And then I'm going to kind of like end it there for the talking about the plot itself. What I will say is the main spoiler of the story is not necessarily about who won the case, but more so what gets found out in the investigation. So before we get into the spoiler bit, we'll spend a bit of time talking about like stuff, non-spoiler stuff. I did have a role in this part. You 3 did not. What was your thoughts watching this from an outside perspective?
I was excited. I was really intrigued to see like where he would take this ending, and it went somewhere completely different than I thought it would. And it was kind of interesting to kind of see the whole court case happening during the show, because that hadn't been done for T182H3 yet. It was really interesting to see. And yeah, it definitely takes a very dramatic turn, and I won't go into spoilers yet, but it was very surprising, at least.
Callum?
Well, for me, I was obviously excited. This was like it was like the finale. I thought it's finally upon us, and obviously not spoiling it, I was quite surprised on a few parts of it, obviously, and obviously it's like hard not to say without spoiling it. But yeah, it was great story, great like voice acting, and brilliant creativity of how he structured it as well.
Adam?
Well, I think it was. Well, it was all good, 100% good writing and all that. The court case was very, very detailed. I mean, I'm not sure how real court cases go like, but I think that's the closest of detail anyone has ever put in. But maybe, now this is just my opinion, of course, it's a bit, well, lack of words, boring. Like I said, this is just my opinion. I may not just be a court case fan or of just nothing but dialogue and talking. So, like I said, it's very good, very detailed, and definitely one he, I think, must have done research for. Overall, good.
I felt that this had a lot of drama in it. Certainly blown away with how this went. I reckon Otto Grubb's the perfect idea of an antagonist, especially for the Fat Controller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
I guess what I can see from most of you is the thoughts that are coming through your head seems to be spoiler related. So without further ado, I shall hand the reins to Mika, who's going to be talking about the story in more detail.
Yes, thank you very much. So we're now going into spoiler territory. I'll cover kind of like the investigation part of it. So ultimately, they found that the points and the signals had been tampered with. And how they found out was through one security camera that did not end up being tampered with at all. It caught, who was there, as well as a journal, like saying like all the times that the trains will be coming through and everything. And the book, it belonged to Thickens. Dun, dun, dun. So,
Well, they'd found out that after the crash, the police investigated the area, and they found a notebook.
It also included like when Gordon crashed into Tidmouth, and when the boulder came loose at the season finale of the series. Like a lot of it was like planned out sabotage, and that's what really gave the finale a dramatic turn, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions that I want to ask.
It also showed CCTV footage of somebody screwing around with the points.
Yep, that'd be Thickens.
Yeah, we'll get on to him in a bit later, but yeah, and before all the case, the in terms of who was going to win it, the favor looked to be swung in Otto Grubbs. It kind of picked up to the Fat Controllers after Diesel had made that speech. During the case, it was probably about 50-50. But when the investigation came in, you pretty much knew that the Fat Controller had it in the bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just beyond his control. Like he had no control over that.
Yeah, you knew that Grubb had no chance. But Mika, you said you had some questions.
I did. It was just kind of some general thoughts of like the episode as a whole. The first question I have is: are there any differences / similarities that you may have noticed in this episode, compared to the series as a whole, like in terms of like tone, writing style, like that sort of thing?
Oh well, I probably haven't really taken this into account as much, but I think it's certainly gone to a much bigger focus for like it's got a bit more adult. And I would say for this series, I'd recommend the youngest age you'd have to be would be 12 to watch this. We've got a comment here from National Guard 5 who says, all this sabotage talk is reminding me of Jacob Burke from Victor Tanzig's Sabotage story.
Oh yeah, I know what he's talking about.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Do
you have
I do. I have a couple more. What was your favorite element in the episode? It could be writing, it could be the characters, the overall ambiance of the show or episode. I mean, like whatever sort of thing you really enjoyed. I really enjoy looking at things like at a technical point of view. So I thought that would be an interesting thing to kind of add in.
Well,
I think my favorite. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay. So I think what I liked in this was the obviously the writing, because I don't know how he done it, which I thought was amazing, was having like all of them instant, like Gordon's crash at Tidmouth, the Boulder incident, like all of that interlinked was just executed perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It really made it very cohesive. Go ahead, Matt.
pretty much mostly fall in line with what Callum said. The writing and the tone. My favourite scenes probably got to be the moment when well, this is kind of two scenes, but when Duck crashes into Gordon's train, and also the moment when they find out where Otto Grubb's been injured and a guard has died.
Yeah,
also-
that really took a turn.
Also, it is interesting to note that beforehand, when Duck, voiced by Waltzland, 1960 something, I believe, and Oliver, voiced by the Peel Godred branch, when they were having their scene, Duck said about before Duck left, they spoke about the trucks being well behaved, and then that's when you know that the trucks had. It was not the truck's fault at all for the crash.
Mm-hmm. I forgot about that. That's a good point to add. What about you, Adam? Any thoughts?
Well, this is quite difficult to say without making me sound too offensive to his writing or too nitpicky or something like that. But I kind of think he could have made more or hinted more of the final series part in his earlier episodes. I mean, I know he couldn't because during the time he was making his series, he didn't have any time. He didn't really think about ending his series. Like, it was only a sheer coincidence that the very first episode and the Pirates one, those two could actually meet up with the last one. But I don't know. I think kind of like if we saw like Boggins' fuel actually go under, like maybe there's an episode where where like Henry or James would actually say like the power plant or the fuel depot has actually been shut down. Maybe that could have made more of an impact. I mean, the only thing we got about fuel was Henry's fear of fuel in Frightful Memory.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, it's completely out of his control. He hasn't really thought out everything, which I don't blame him for. Many people don't think of everything first; they just write it for fun. So, but that doesn't excuse anything. That it's all complete good storytelling in general. Just kind of wish it focused some sides on the Boggins fuel to see if anything.
We'll get to that in a bit later.
Yeah.
I think Tarnished Legacy, I think this is the one in the trilogy where it could work as a standalone story, where if you just focused it on like the conflict between the Northwestern Railway and Otto Grubb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the cast might be a good place to talk about next. What do you think, Mika?
I do have one last question for the Tarnished Legacy episode. Did you feel there were moments that solidified or completed a character's story arc in T1, E2, H3 series? So, for example, the speech Diesel had when the Pack Controller was talking about the trial he was going to be going through.
Yeah, I thought that having had a revolutionary redemption, I thought that was a perfect way to have Diesel with like a motivational line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, don't get me wrong. Diesel's motivational speech was actually very good. Shows how much he's grown as a character. But in his in the series T1 OS, I think we don't really get to see actual Diesel's backstory, as we only see him like in the background of making some slur about the steamies and all that. Sometimes I completely forgot that he was actually meant to be reformed in his series until they actually spoke it out. But like I said, the speech is actually very good. But maybe some of the other reformed characters could have had a line like Ted or Croven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, you can't please everyone. So yeah.
I'd have to agree with you guys. I think the one with Diesel was definitely a really good one in that, with his motivational speech. I was not expecting that.
Okay.
Cool.
Yep, that's all the questions I have.
Yeah, I think the cast might be a good place to touch on next in this episode.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there was a good number of people in there, including myself. I had one scene which had 3 lines. I guess before we go to me, what's your favorite performance or performers in the story?
That's hard because everyone did a really good job.
Yeah.
We've got a comment here from National Guard 5 again, who says Ted's reformed moment was somewhat hilarious with the beer moment. I have to agree with that.
Oh.
They weren't carrying fuel. They were carrying beer!
I think the majority of cast, like even all of us, we all did our own good job because we did our best.
But for Tarnished Legacy.
Yeah. Maybe. What was it?
I'd say probably
I
my
think-
favorite.
You continue.
I mean, Otto Grubber, the German of Sodor as Otto Grub's an easy option to go with. So is T1E2 H3 as the Fat Controller. That you can easily go with that M as like best performers. I think Diesel with his one moment to shine. I think that was a standout for me.
And
I think
me too.
for Darth Will 3, probably his best characters are Alfred and Spencer, but I think Diesel was my favourite, and I think his line in Tarnished Legacy was probably one of the best I've seen heard from Darth Will. What do you guys think? Who are your favourite performers in Tarnished Legacy?
Well, I definitely agree with German of Sodor and Darth Will 3. They did excellent. Sorry, excuse me. T1A2 H3 also obviously did a really, really good job. I also enjoyed all the returning as well. Like for Thomas, Jacob Breaker 123. I enjoy is watching him play Thomas and
The Aussie of the cast.
Yeah, and Enterprise Agent 93 is Edward. I always enjoy watching him as Edward, Bertram.
He and Andrew Homer were the only got one lines in this one, but yeah,
True.
they still did pretty good for their one moments.
Yeah, and it has a sense of familiarity to it. Like even if they don't say all that much, like like who they are and who they're being and like all that sort of thing. I'm trying really, really hard not to cough again, so don't mind me.
So, what do you think, Callum and Adam?
I would agree with you two on what you've said, and I also did like Blue Smoke Productions as the investigator. I did like that one.
I enjoyed listening to him. I think both lawyers did a good job as well.
Yeah, for me, I can't really pick my favourites as they all done each part beautifully, as they all did, or at least tried to do as much emotion for the final product. But of course, the ones that do stand out would have to be the German of Sodor and Darth Will 3, as well as T1E2H3.
Okay, I guess now the next thing to talk about is me. So how so having not auditioned for any of the listed characters, I later on got a message from the creator himself saying he has some lines here for Toby for me to do, and that's how I got involved in the actual trilogy itself. Hold on a sec. What was I doing? And I remember I asked, "Is there a certain accent you want me to do?" Because I felt that was kind of missing from when I did Toby and NWR Origins. And he said I just needed to do what I did in NWR Origins. So basically, my normal voice with like an older feel to it. So just on the night before I went away for a football match to Coventry, I had a look through Tarnished Legacy, but on the actual day when I voiced it, what I did was, how I went about it was, I read everything that happened before my scene, and what that allowed me to do was be more into the character and like have a proper feeling on what's happened, rather than just go to the page and read my lines from there. Having seen what's happened beforehand helped create like the emotion of how I should think. And then when I did the actual lines for Toby, who had about 3, he was in a scene with Percy and James, who all 3 of them were doing passenger duties, and there was an announcement on Percy's driver's radio that Otto Grub was planning to sue the Northwestern Railway, and it mentioned that there would be a string of incidents. And the scene when the engines talk, they talked in sadness about the bad things that could happen. So yes, I used that to help create a voice sounding like very sad. So so that's kind of how I got myself set into the emotion of Toby.
That makes sense.
All right.
Very nice.
How do you think I got on in Tarnished Legacy specifically?
Wait, what was the question?
How do you think I got on as Toby in that story?
You did really good. You really got the emotions down, like pat, and you had strong like objectives and tactics and that sort of thing, and the motives behind what Toby was saying was very strong.
Yeah, same. Because you did.
Yeah.
The line delivery all was great, definitely in it.
Callum?
Yeah. Oh Lord, my voice just cracked.
Oh dear.
Oh no, he's glitching. No.
Okay, I think I fixed it.
Awesome.
So yeah, what did you make of me in the story?
I thought you did really well. I enjoyed your performance.
Mm-hmm.
I think what also made the scene itself effective was the use of music from Henry's Forest when the weather had wrecked the forest. That is probably the most emotional bit of music from the franchise I've heard, and the fact it went into the scene and fitted so well, I think that made the scene as well even better.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I agree.
Yeah.
And Christopher Bouchard, I don't know what his tactics were in terms of getting into character, but he certainly got into Percy's side of sadness well, and I also liked and the way Andrew Homer executed his line as well.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say he did well in that as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely did a good job.
Yeah. Before we get to the very final bit of the story, is there anything you want to add?
Not off the top of my head.
No, thanks.
Yes,
So, going back to the court case, after a lot was revealed that someone or some people had been sabotaging the Fat Controllers Railway in the investigation, that helped the jury decide, come to the conclusion that that they were out of Sir Topham Hatt's control and they feel he's guilty. The judge agreed, and Sir Topham Hatt won the case. And then the kind of afterwards. The motive goes from them talking about the case to them talking about the other problems going on, and then the final scene goes to is set at the scrap yard. It has Diesel 10 saying his line about we've been found out. You better get out of here. Last, and then you hear a new voice by Matthew Voss with a line. After Diesel 10 says, "You better get out of here fast," you hear, "No, it's time for some real revenge." And then Diesel 10 looks over and says, "Very well, Fitkins." And then you realize Fitkins is part of the story. And when Matthew Voss said that line, I thought, this sounds epic.
Yeah, he did an awesome good job. I got to know him like during our run of NWO Origins because he played, I believe it was Vulcan during Bogo's origin story. And and we kind of got along through the fact like, hey, it's our first time voice acting. We're not entirely sure what we're doing, but it's fun nonetheless. And I really enjoy talking to him. He's a really, really cool guy. And I was like so excited. I was like, ooh, this is gonna get good. I was like so excited for him. Because that guy can act. He can really act. He's really good at it.
Callum, what did you make of the ending?
I loved it. I didn't expect it. When I just heard the new voice, I was like, wait, who's that? I just see Fitkins. I'm like, oh my god, he is now part of the story.
And Adam?
Well, it was definitely a plot twist, and it was nice to see him again. As yeah, we did see T see his reasons in the first in the episodes, but now that he's actually teamed up, I think he's actually became a tad bit more threatening in a way, but still
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah, I
So-
agree.
Indeed.
Indeed. Okay. So, are we ready to go on to part 2?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Phantom Saboteur. Phantom Saboteur continues from. It picks up from where Tarnished Legacy left off. Stars T1, E3, E2, H3, Marcus Dude 1, Matthew Voss, and MrMerlinFan02 as the mystery character. So the plot itself, it starts with the Fat Controller making a speech about what was revealed in the court case. There's a threat to the railway. There's still the what's it called? The services will still be running, but if the anyone sees anything, they got to let them know. And the police are meanwhile investigating it all. It's revealed, and kind of during this story, it's got people reflecting on the situations themselves, the engines, a few of the human characters, and later on, kind of, it gets the feel that okay. Henry comes to a realization that Otto Grubb could be the person behind this after the fact. He wanted to take step 2 of get proper revenge, having not won the court case. Percy and Thomas are totally behind the idea. Gordon not necessarily, but yeah. And then later, Percy kind of says what the engines think about who the culprit might be. It's the Fat Controller. But as he revealed the answer, there's a gun target hovering over the Fat Controller. The next thing you know, there's a bang. It goes through his hat, and you find out that someone's actually trying to kill off the Fat Controller. He manages to survive through a couple of misses and some blockings by Percy and his train, and the station master managed to evacuate him out. Later, it's the mood is more about what's happened with someone's tried to kill off the Fat Controller, and all, and then Diesel 10, who and also to note, Ari and Bert were talking amongst themselves before the shooting, and Ari was super suspicious about Diesel 10. Bert was having none of it. But and then later on, Ari gets even more suspicious that that Diesel 10 knows something about the shooting. And then later Diesel 10 goes to the smelters and talks to Fitkins, played by Matthew Voss, and Marcus Dude playing Diesel 10. They have a talk. And then later on, something goes a bit wrong as Mr. Percival goes missing. And then later, the Fat Controller gets a phone call from Mr. Percival saying he knows something about who's responsible for some of the problems that have been going on. And he believes it's not Otto Grubb. So then he says the Fat Controller should meet him up in a private area. And after a bit of questioning, the Fat Controller does agree, and Mr. Percival arranged Thomas to take him there. But then after the phone call, it was revealed that towards the end of the phone call, some music was playing, some scary music was being played, and when Mr. Percival put the phone down, he speaks to someone. And then it cuts over to Fitkins as it shows that he's kidnapped the Finn Controller and he's held him hostage. So kind of between that, after that, Diesel 10 gives Bert a train for him to take to Knapford, something to do with the station. Then Thomas, his crew, and the Fat Controller make their way to the area the Finn Controller said he wanted to meet Fat Controller, and then he has a talk. He earlier said it wasn't Otto Grubb. And before I carry on, there is one indication to say why Otto Grubb is not the twist villain in this, as the German of Sodor's name was never mentioned in the opening credits. So there's that bit of foreshadowing. But back to the story. So Mr. Percival speaks about that Fitkins is like behind this and all. But then as the Finn Controller gets all nervous and the Fat Controller's questioning him all, then Fitkins goes straight out of the bush and puts puts everyone there at gunpoint. Then Diesel 10 comes in after Thomas goes whistling. And then comes the big reveal as after Sir Topham Hatt questions why Fitkins is doing all this and what he wants. Fitkins says he doesn't want anything from the Fat Controller. His boss wants to speak to him. Then comes the reveal of... Well, then Diesel 10 gives a bit more information. And then after Thomas asks about who his old owner is, out comes a man played by MrMerlinFan02. He walks out. The Fat Controller's shocked. He even says, "Oh my God, how is this possible? You're supposed to be dead." And then reveals Phil Boggiston.
Da, da, da.
That's right.
Ba-ba-bum.
The main villain, the mastermind behind it, Phil Boggiston, played by MrMerlinFan02. So the next bit kind of revolves around a conversation between, why Phil Boggiston wants revenge, the history that he and the Hatt family had with his family, and then it talks a little bit about Fitkins, and then Boggiston expresses he's ready to murder the Fat Controller. It was also revealed that Fitkins had killed off Chuck, the guard from the last story, and then Bogiston's ready. He gives the command to Fitkins to kit it ill off the Fat Controller, but just about out as it happens, Fitkins gets shot in the shoulder. As the police arrived, having been contacted by the Duke of Sodor, is it? I'm not quite
Duke
sure.
of Oxford.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I remember now. The SWAT team comes. They end up both, and the villains, Bogiston, Fitkins, and Diesel 10 end up escaping. Fitkins goes in a different direction. And then Spencer comes to the rescue with the Duke of Boxford. And he expresses he's flying his drone, having the drone been shown earlier, had been I won't get too much into that right now, but then it was also revealed that the train Bert took to Knapford had explosives in it, and Thomas remembered about that, and they had to rush back to Knapford to war on everyone, and that's kind of the conclusion to that bit itself. So at this point, Mika, Adam, and Callum, this is where you guys have made your debuts in this trilogy. I had 2 lines in the story. In fact, when on the opening credits, me, Mika, and Adam were the along with Harold's actor Jackson Begley, were like in the last 4 of names to mention. Callum's was the first. So yeah, I guess I'm not sure where to start, whether to necessarily talk about the acting or the twist. So I think, where should we start? Any ideas?
I'd say go for twists first.
Okay, so yeah, I'll let you take the reins for this, Callum.
Okay then. Well, in terms of the twist, I think, well, of course, I knew what was going to happen, obviously. But I feel like when I was reading it, from my part, I liked it. It was really good. And how it was all interconnected. So, like, we had parts from, like, that were, like, from a few years ago in terms of his universe. It just intellected so well. And also, another thing I'd like to mention is when I came to recording the lines. Now, that was a story in itself, as it took me quite a few attempts to get it right, in a way, but I managed to do it after about 5 or 6 attempts later. But yeah, that's my view on the whole twist of it.
Okay, we've got a few more comments from National Guard 5, and he says, what if Phil Bogiston was put up to his acts by his father? And I remember before the twist happened, I was thinking Arthur Bogiston was a worse guy than Phil Bogiston. And we've also, he said, I remember Bogiston being mentioned a couple of years ago. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think Phil's father would have really worked, because I would assume he was already dead by the time
yeah,
the engines and motors put out
even
into
Phil
place.
witnessed Arthur's death.
Yeah, so yeah, no, his father was not part of it by any means whatsoever. This is all Phil.
I believe I read that Mika, you didn't actually see the twist coming because you were just primarily focused on your lines.
Yeah,
Adam, I'm not so sure. I know Darth Vader had this, but motivation. So I guess, what was your take on the twist?
I was very
You were going to speak,
surprised.
Mika,
I mean,
so I'll go to you first.
I was very surprised. I mean, I knew going in that the assassination would only be an attempt. Like, it would not take the Fat Controller's life. Just from my lines alone, I was like, okay, he's fine, but it does cause a lot of uncertainty and suspicion, like, around the island, and a lot of tension. I gathered that. And even though he sent me the whole script, I only read my lines because I was like, I really want to keep this a surprise, like, as much as possible. Like, even though I am in this series, I still want it to be as much of a surprise to like everybody else who will be watching a series later on. Because on top of being like on top of like acting in the series, I also enjoy the show like as an audience member as well, and I really wanted I wanted everything else to be a surprise for me because I had legit no idea what was happening, like, outside my lines on purpose. So when I saw that Phil Bogason was like the mastermind, the James Bond villain, if you will, I was like, whoa. I was like, mind blown. It caught me very off guard. I was like, ooh, okay, well played. Well played.
What do you think, Adam?
Well, when I was reading my lines, I didn't really read any further of the script. I only stick to my lines because I still wanted to be surprised. But when the twist came, well, this may have been my bad. I didn't really refresh on the entire series. So when Boggenston stepped out of Deedleton's cab, I was like, who? I didn't refresh. But yeah, I just didn't know who he was until I rewatched the entire episodes, and I was like, oh.
Well, it did say that Boggenston did actually talk through. It did actually show clips from that episode.
Yeah.
So I would have thought you got some refreshment.
Yeah, I was fairly refreshant about the whole what was the tanker's name? Rich.
Rich, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I remembered about him, and then I vaguely remembered about the fuel depot. I just didn't remember what the company's name and who the guy who owned it was. But yeah, it was. If I rewatched the entire series, I think I would have still been amazed by the twist at the end.
Yeah, when it came before the twist, it was kind of hard for me to put my finger on who was going to be the mastermind. I kind of dismissed Otto Grubb from the opening credits. I think I did actually peek at the ending in the script, but I won't lie about that. But what I thought had thinking was when it actually was revealed, I was like, I certainly could not have predicted him to be around, because I thought the death was kind of eliminated my thinking for him to appear, but when it was explained a bit more, then I bought it more as the villain himself. So I think the next place to talk about is you guys, because you made your debut in this. Callum, you've talked about how you went into what your mentality was going into it. You can elaborate a bit more on that in a bit, but I'll go to Adam first. So you came into the story. You had 2 lines, and you had a character who, in the series, it wasn't really explored in like the railway. In the TV series, and didn't get a role. So his voice had like pretty much no limit. How did you like go about it and about the whole thing?
Well, like I said, when I first got the part to play him, I was fairly surprised because I didn't think my voice suited him. But I did my best. I tried to sound, as intelligent as I could. But then, saying my lines were, I wouldn't say hard, because, well, any lines could be hard, but trying to put more emotion into them, though I think I may have failed in some points. But yeah, I think it was all good with the whole hinting with the having the callback to Diesel and Ted being villains of the series, and then but yeah, I think with Bear, it was good to see actually have him as a speaking role in his series again, as this was the final product he was going to make and going to be introduced in.
Okay, and Mika, you'd made your debut in NWR Origins, as established earlier. You were a popular voice actress, so it was no wonder Thomas 1 Edward 2 Henry 3 thought about bringing you back. So, so you made your debut in a scene where you're talking with Harold. So how did you go about? How did you go about voicing Mavis in like this one? Given that her role in this story has been massively reduced compared to when you were the main character.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing the lines for Mavis. I always enjoy returning to that character, and I think honestly, like compared to like NWR Origins and the finale, I kind of try to do my best to make her a bit more wise than when she was, younger and everything, and kind of more critical about like what is happening, like how she found Mr. Percival's car still being at his house, but him not being there himself. Very suspicious and kind of taking everything into account. So, yeah, I kind of try to do my best to kind of like mature the character as much as I could, even though I did not really have that much to necessarily work with, but I did my best to like kind of like give my character at least some form of growth, if that makes sense. Excuse me.
Interesting. And Callum, you spoke a lot about earlier of your voice acting and how it went into the twist. Have you got much more to say?
Well, I think I can give a bit of a trivia on when I got the script. Because when back last year in December, I was given a specific voice for Cornwall, which was the duck voice I used in my audition. However, when I got the script this time, he didn't actually tell me a specific voice to do for Bogston. So I thought, okay, maybe he's leaving it to me to do it. So I thought, how about I go for a gruff British accent? That might work. So obviously, that's the one that made the final cut, which I was happy about. But if I'm honest, when I was doing the lines, I had to stop quite a few times to have a bit of water for my throat to be a bit more moist.
Yeah.
I think something we talked about this about once in Tarnished Legacy, but I think the music is something that's predominantly very good in the series. I think there was 3 brilliant pieces by Kevin MacLeod. I think I'm McLeod. I'm not quite sure how you say his name. At the beginning, there's Wounded, that opening piano music during the Fat Controller's speech. Face Off, that epic bit of music as it was showing like the flashback of Duck crashing into Gordon's train, and also the bit of music where it goes into a bit more about Fitkins with called Anxiety, as well as some of the returnees of the Scheming Weasel.
Oh yeah.
And Private Reflect. No, wait, no, Private Reflection wasn't in that one. But yeah, and also it included some Star Wars music, which I think that remix of Darth Vader's theme was excellent.
Yes, definitely.
So yeah, he did a good job with the music. Yeah. Also, I had 2 lines in that script. It's in the scene where the engines talk about the things going on. I noticed that I said that the culprit can't have been anyone random. It's obvious someone has serious beef. And also had a line about the drone. I think I reckon as the series got on, I got better. But this in this one, it was definitely not about me. But I did what I had to do. Okay, and so also, I think before we get a bit more to the end, talk a bit more about in detail about the ending, I think I'd say Phantom Saboteur was probably my least favorite of the 3. It was certainly epic, but I think of the 3, I'd probably say that's the weakest. But I do think it did it better than Tarnished Legacy on tension and like fear factor, and I think it was the best on humor as well, because I think the best jokes came from that story. The ones that come to mind clearly were when after Gordon talked about forming an observational squad, but he couldn't understand and he pronounced it completely wrong. Bobblism. I also think Rusty got some very good lines as well when he said that Diesel 10 looked like a rejected Transformer.
I forgot about that one. That was funny.
I love that. Another one that I really loved was when Diesel 10 got back, Matthew Voss, which when first hearing his voice for this episode, I didn't think he sounded quite as epic as in part 1, but still good. He said when Diesel 10 said, "Well, I know you're there expecting to see Bockiston," Fitkins was like, "Right here, Pac-Man." I love that line. And the 4th funny line that really stands out to me was after the moment when Peter Sam was wondering about Phil Bogiston, which I think Peter Sam's a standout performer. I think he got the Welsh accent. Blue Single, who played him, got the Welsh accent brilliantly. But when he talks about Mr. Percival's disappearance and how this is odd, Rusty's like, "Oh, maybe his cat got stuck in the tree or his toilet overflowed." Oh, did.
That was a good line.
Yeah, Rusty was kind of was in the show was like probably my least favorite. Certainly one of my least favorite from the narrow gauge stories. But I think in this one he's very, very good. I think he got some of the best. He got the funny half of the funny lines I've mentioned. They came from Rusty.
Yeah. Yeah, Rusty
Well,
has some really good
what else?
lines. Sorry, go
Do you
ahead.
think of any other moments?
No, kind of
Um,
covered them.
Yeah, I think we covered pretty much key ones that we
Yeah,
need
I
to
think.
cover.
Would you agree that's like where of Phantom Saboteur being best for humor?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And how about performance? Best standout performance. But I mean, Callum as Boyston has probably got to be the answer. But also, I think the blue single as Peter Sam and was another good one to add to the book. I remember someone talking about Harold who did well, saying he sounds like James Bond.
He does kind of sound like James Bond. I never thought of that.
I wouldn't have come to that conclusion on my own, but having seen, I don't know who said it, having seen someone's comment, I was like, yeah. But what did you think of the actors in this story?
Well,
Yeah.
well,
Mika?
Callan did a great job as Bill Buxton. That's for certain. I enjoyed Diesel 10 and Thomas and Spencer, especially at the climax. And their lines were very well cemented as well. And they did a really good job there. And again, Matthew Voss is as the kids. I always enjoy watching him. So yeah, those were definitely my favorites.
I was
from that
certainly
episode.
excited to listen to him after hearing him in part one. Didn't quite come across as I was expecting, but still good nonetheless. Adam, who were your favourite performers from that episode? And of course, the Fat Controller throughout as well.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think the same old. So, like, Darthwell 3, Mr. Merlin, of course, T1E2 H3, and of course...
Also as Mr. Percival.
Yeah. And who's the one who played Diesel 10?
Oh, I have it right here. Marcus Dude 1.
Marcus Dude 1.
Yeah, he did another good job too.
I think he did better than in Tarnished Legacy. I think he's another one that's got better and better within the trilogy.
Yeah.
Let me think. Well, in terms of performances, apart from myself, of course, I have to say all you three did very
Still
well.
a valid answer.
Yeah. And who else? Matthew, Marcus Dude 1. Oh, it's just so many. Jackson, Jonathan Asaiva, very Gokko. Just literally everyone did a
Richard
max.
Hunslet, who was Rusty.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, you mentioned very angry Goku. Ari and Bert were another two standouts from there. I mentioned earlier that I was interested in playing Ari or Bert. I probably would have put a bit more emphasis on Ari because of his appearance in the TV show. But having heard Jonathan's performance, I can't fault that at all. I will happily let him do the work. And I think very angry Goku as Bert was also good too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I guess now the thing to talk about before we move on is the ending when they talk about the history between the Hats and the Boggerstons, a little bit of Fitkins, and then the shooting. So, what do you think of all that, Adam?
Well, definitely caught me off guard because, you know, we're told to friends you don't really expect that kind of gun violence in it, of course. But I think it was definitely one thing that stood out from his series is of how it matures. Was it actually becomes sort of well, not really adult series, just more of a series for older audience. But yeah,
Yes. I think he wants to kind of target that older generation that that grew up with the older series.
but yeah, it was all very well thrilling as well, especially in the chase scene, of course, because yeah, of course it was all quite very thought out as well, because like of Harry and Bert, well, accidentally planting the bomb at Knapford, and then who was it? Was it Harry?
It was Bert.
Yeah, but who was it? Was it Harry or Bert who like grown more suspicious?
It was Harry.
Harry, yeah, because that's one thing about Harry and Bert, because yeah, we have like Donald and Douglas. Some people don't know is that Donald's more kind-hearted and Douglas is more brave. So having that difference between Harry and Bert, one being slightly smarter than the other, was actually a good
point.
Detail. But yeah, back to the thing. Yeah, like I said, the chase scene was pretty awesome because apart from the chase that happened in Hero of the Rails between Thomas and Spencer, it's actually nice to see that Spencer was actually carrying or pulling Thomas for some safety. But yeah, what did you guys think of that?
Well, obviously, because of course I knew what happened. I think because obviously reading it from a script, I kind of thought, right, try and visualize what's actually going to happen in the final product. But if I'm honest, what I visualized and what actually happened was completely different. What actually happened was so much better, and it was executed perfectly.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Mika?
I felt that this episode really tied all the loose ends really nicely, and it was a very satisfying end to the series. Damn cough.
Well, to that episode.
Hang on, I'm gonna find a cough real quick.
Okay. But yeah, who for?
Should we move on?
Yeah, you can go ahead and move on.
Okay.
Yeah. Any more thoughts about Phantom Saboteur?
No, I think we've covered all the good points.
Well, apart from one teensy-wincy tiny little nitpick detail, like, this is only I notice, so a lot of you don't notice this, but Mr. Percival rides a bike, not a car. Very tiny, I know.
Yeah. Good.
Oh yeah.
I guess you could kind of say you could made a point about he probably eventually came to the stage where he needed a car for like some other reasons. But if then again, but like if he did, I agree. If he was going to have a car, then you probably would need an explanation. But if there wasn't a car there, then kind of that whole scene between Harold and Mavis wouldn't really work as well.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, very tiny detail and nitpick.
I couldn't see too much faults in this story. I just don't think a lot of the stuff there was done as well as the stuff in Tarnished Legacy.
Yeah, get you. I'm honestly really happy with how the ending turned out. It was a good
Me
finale.
too. I think we can all agree with that. And if we're ready to go on to Wrath on the Rails, which, yes or no? Yes. Okay.
Yee.
I think so.
Yep. This time I'm going to shift the responsibility to MrMerlinFan, who will cover this story. I'll just say all of us got bigger roles in the story. Well, all of us got bigger roles in the story. And Callum sort of kind of became king of this section. But so I'm going to have him review the part 3, mainly because he volunteered for it. So I think he could take it away.
Right, thank you very much indeed, Matt. Okay, so a summary of Wrath on the Rails. So, right, let's do this. So, we start off with Otto Grubb and his lawyer talking in office, which was, at first, people were a bit confused about. And then, obviously, he makes a call to me, Bogiston, and then everyone's the realization of, like, Grubb's lawyer was in the whole plot. Then we cut the scene to Thomas and Spencer trying to get to Knapford as quick as they can. Thankfully, Topham was able to call ahead to Knapford, and the station master evacuated everybody just in time. But then, as they were going, Diesel 10 comes, and he starts chasing them. Thankfully, and quite oddly, the Duke of Boxford had a gun on him and shot Diesel 10. And then, as they try and make it to Knapford as quick as they can, they are unfortunately too late as Knapford goes up in flames. Yeah. And then after breaks big headlines on the news, and then they try to think who could be interlected with this. And then obviously Stephen, Richard's father, what am I saying? Realizes, wait, I think I know who we can talk to. And then the doors open, and there we reveal Wretch, who has known about Bogiston's whereabouts. Then after that, we have cut to the engines at Knapford. They are talking about the whole ordeal of events and how they want to get revenge on Bogiston for all these events. Then obviously we find that Fidkins has escaped, and he's got on the bus. It was driven by Vlad, part of the mafia, I think it was, and they assassinated Otto Grubb earlier that day. Then they all planned to start, instead of their next plan is to start picking off all the engines one by one. So as they kidnap 5 engines, which are Gordon, Toby, Douglas, Ari, and Bert, and hold for ransom by Bogiston, and as now they have to deliver a certain amount of money to him by 6 o'clock. And then after that, we have come to the scene of all the engines saying that no, we will not back down. We will get our friends back no matter what. And then, of course, when Bogiston realizes this, Diesel 10 is like, whoa, wait, you're really going to do this? And then he's like, yes, I am going to do this. And then, of course, he cowers down to it. Then we have all the engines lined up at Knapford, ready to go, as what can be described as the best music to use, which is the Avengers Endgame theme, as the engines set off to the rescue. Then it cuts off to different scenes where we have Thomas, Percy, Harvey, a few others are ready to rescue Toby. We have Boko, Donald, Henry, James and Oliver ready to rescue Douglas, and they talk about the financial problems, which was very interesting. And then, of course, they all attack on everyone. They start getting Douglas back. They get Toby. And then, of course, when they make their way to the smelters, the Tophams make their way in. However, Bogiston is ready for their arrival, and Grubb's lawyer dumps a barrel of fuel, and he lights it, and the whole shed starts to go up in flames. Gordon, Harry, and Bert thinking they're not going to make it out alive. But then, of course, we cut to the scene where, well, actually, something I forgot to mention earlier was Wretch had agreed to be, well, basically, he would agree to let the building go up in flames, obviously, because he had this pipe that was attached to him. But Grubb's lawyer had unplugged it. But then he ran off and then got shot by the SWAT in the open field. But then going back to Gordon, Harry, and Bert, they are in the shed. They think they're going to, obviously, they can't make it out. But thankfully, Gordon remembers where they could go through the wall of the shed, and they do thankfully get out. And Bertie races in and grabs the hats. Then Bogiston goes to Diesel 10 and says, let's get out of here. But then Diesel 10 has other plans. He charges forward, and then before you know it, crashes into Wretch, and boom, the whole shed goes up in flames. After that, they find that the remains of Diesel 10's Claw Pinchy, and realizing that Bogiston is now truly dead. And then, of course, they have the thing at Knapford where they have like a press conference saying about like these last few days have been very horrific, but they don't stand down. The Engines are very, very thankful for Topham. They couldn't believe they got through it, and they rebuild Knapford, which I actually like the design of Knapford. And as Thomas ends it off in the best way, exactly. But just remember, there's always tomorrow. And that's the summary. Whew. That was a long one.
Beautiful.
That was a long one.
We've got two comments in. We've got Trains for Days says the Duke of Boxford with a rifle is overpowered. I also want to make a note for that. In the script, the Duke of Boxford also he shot Diesel 10 twice, but in the actual cut, it was only done. He only had one shot, and I think as a flaw, it kind of made Bogiston look as though he cowered down. But I think in the script, he'd stopped Diesel 10 because a bullet, a shot through Diesel 10's window. But another comment we've got by National Guard 5 is, just curious, who voiced Bertie in the finale? That was Ryan Sock. He did a very good job with that Scouse accent.
Mm-hmm.
Back to you, Callum.
Okay, so I have, just for this one, I have 3 questions. The first question is, what were your initial thoughts on the special as a whole? So, Matt, I will start with you.
Well, I was blown away with more went on in terms of kind of, it could be my favorite. It's a bit neck and neck with Tarnished Legacy. It's got more faults than Tarnished Legacy, but what it does right, it does so well. I have to say that. Voice acting, I think everyone had turned up for it. Music also did its job well. I think, though I know there's people that didn't necessarily think it was that good of an idea to have incorporated the lawyer and Vlad and a Russian mobbing, but I actually really like that bit in particular. There's a lot to talk about. I could talk about this for days on end. Yeah, there's a lot to admire in this story.
Okay, Mika, what did you think?
It was epic.
I had a feeling you would say that.
it was just really fun. It was just very. It really brings a lot of adrenaline in, and you're like, "Oh God, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen?" And then I don't know. I just felt very satisfied and really happy, and like all the ends kind of like it tied themselves together, and then it just everything felt really cohesive and smooth, and I was like, "This is nice. I like
Ah.
this." Kaboom!
Brilliant. Brilliant. And Adam, what did you think?
Definitely one of the best series finales of a Thomas Fan made YouTubers series ever. Because if you remember, not many people get that lucky opportunity to properly end their series. So him being one of the rare few is actually pretty good. So, suspenseful, the character build-up, keeping you on the edge of your seat. It has almost everything you like about it. So, yeah, it's all good. It's fantastic, even.
Ah, perfect. Well, for me, I'd have to say, yeah, I agree with you guys. It was like really good, really suspenseful. Tension was at its high. It was just fantastic. Okay, the next question is, what did you think of Diesel 10 sacrificing himself? This time I will start with Mika.
I honestly did not see that coming. It was very emotional, but it definitely completed his arc for like redemption and everything, because he was like planning on like backing out of the plan, but Phil Bogerson was like, "No, you're nothing without me. I came back," and all that sort of thing, and really it got into his head, and but finally he was able to kind of like be like, "No, this is messed up. I don't want this to go any farther." So the fact that he made that sacrifice was just it was just a lot to take in a good way.
Yeah, I could definitely agree on that. Matt, what did you think?
Well, I certainly wasn't the ending I was expecting for both Bogiston and Diesel 10. I kind of I liked I thought certainly it made sense in like the way Diesel 10 wanted to like do it, that like having reflected on that earlier scene when he was had thoughts about giving up, and then but when he really did it this time, it made sense that he felt there's no way Bogiston could have kept on going with his act, because their cover had been blown. A lot of their people that worked with them had died. Almost pretty much everyone who was like on board had died. So with nothing left, it was a logical decision from Diesel 10 to do that. When the explosion came about, I thought that was well done. It was certainly a quite a scene to take in on why he like decided to do that and all, and how he ended. I didn't expect him to die. I guess that's the like basic thing to say about it.
Yeah, of course, it was a very well, it was quite shocking. And Adam, what did you think of it?
Well, I was emotional and confused because when he died, I was like, when he shot forward, I was like, what the hell is he doing? Then he exploded and showed his claw, and I was like, oh, I guess that's the end. I mean, yeah, I don't think. I mean, yeah, it's probably my bad as well. I didn't really like feel his death as too much of a cryy moment, because after all, he did only get like one episode, and then two prior special episodes, which was the fan and Wrath of Sodor.
Yes, I quite agree.
Yeah, what else was that? Oh yeah, I was sort of expecting that he was like, the building would collapse on him and then his claw would shoot up like, I'm not dead. But nope, he's actually dead. So
Yeah.
Well,
I don't
after a big explosion like that, it'll be kind of hard to recover from that.
yeah, I think it was just mainly the whole gimmick of childhood of child cartoons redeeming the villain, like somehow they survive that big thing. But actually seeing that he's dead, but it was definitely something different and welcomed, I would say, of all the three main antagonists, Diesel 10 and Wretch and Mr. Boggins.
Yeah,
Plus,
and
the bang.
yeah, and it made sense with T182H3's universe as well, because Magic Railroad wasn't canon to his series, so it all made sense, or at least in my head, it did.
Yeah.
I agree, definitely. For me, obviously, yeah. Well, obviously seeing the script, and it was just like looking at it. It was like, oh wow, this is going to be good. Actually, this is going to be like magnificent. People are going to be not expecting this one bit. So, right, my last question is, what was my last question? Oh yes. Were there any parts or elements of the special that you think didn't work? Yeah. So for that, I will start with Adam.
Was there any parts that didn't work in that whole thing? Like I said, the slight touch of Diesel 10's death, welcomed, but I was more expecting him to somehow be alive. Ones that didn't work. Well, the engine's being a hostage. I mean, I don't really know his series that well. I mean, is it like that the engines can move by themselves, or is it that they have to have their drivers and firemen to control them?
I think in this case, they would need their drivers and firemen to move themselves. I think the only fan-made series I know of where it says that they can move on their own is Victor Tanzig's series. But other than that, I think it's pretty much the driver and firemen who get them moving.
Yeah. But yeah, what else was there? There was also... This one might be a slight nit. Sorry. This one may have been a slight nitpick, but how Ari, Bert, and Gordon escaped the burning building, they shot back quite...
I think they've got
fast in their
some
speed.
sort of, but it's not like to do that. But like, that.
Yeah.
Maybe the drive.
But yeah, the final part, Wrath on the Rails, didn't really have that much bad stuff as I thought it would have, like the other two prior to that. So it all worked out pretty well. Apart from one slight nitpick that Knapford Station, once it was rebuilt, doesn't really look that nice. I mean, yes, it was just the old station with a fancy top dressing, but it sort of looked like a mess. But yes, again, I don't know trains, so I'm sure he did what he could to make Knapford Station look brand new. So, but yeah, not that much bad stuff coming from me. It was all actually pretty good.
Okay, Mika, what did you think?
So just to confirm,
Wait, what?
What was that?
What was the question?
Oh, the question is what?
yeah, I'm kind of a bit confused myself.
Yeah, I was going to say, what elements of Wrath on the Rails did you think that didn't work?
Oh, geez. I honestly don't know. I've not really thought about it that much. I'm kind of a sucker for narrative theory, so like with the writing and everything, it all kind of made sense and all that sort of thing. Because this is something I studied like a few years back, and seeing like the whole arc of like each character like featured like throughout all three parts was really fascinating to see. And I don't know, like either way, I was really happy with the outcome. I think everything worked, at least from my perspective. It all seemed to work.
Okay. And finally, Matt, what do you think? What do you think?
I think most of it was amazing. I think the things that didn't really work. I think the thing I said earlier about the fact it took just one on shot, and it makes it kind of even worse when there was meant to be two shots. But then again, he said he was probably a bit tired to remember. But just aid of Diesel 10 was enough for Bogiston to cower down and like not chasing after the protagonist. One of the main flaw I definitely have is after Ari Burton Gordon escapes, the way they escaped I'm all fine with, but after they come out, they don't actually roll out that far. So when it comes to the explosion, when it goes off, when Diesel 10 runs into Wretch, it's kind of confusing to see how Ari Burton Gordon survived when like they were still like within the area of the building.
Yeah, I'd say that is a pretty good point. Right. Well, I think before we obviously move on from my section, any other thoughts?
There's there's someone said, "Hey guys," there's another one saying, "I saw the special, but Topper mentioned two people dead. One was human, the other was a loco." Names, I think that would have been Diesel 10 that was the one that died.
Yeah.
Trains for Days says T1, E2, H3's take on who controls what is more realistic, although it was contradicted later on. And someone said, and National Guard 5 has also said something in that felt weird. Why he didn't fill all Bogus and before Diesel 10 blew them both up. Maybe the doors were locked. But yeah, that's another good critique.
Yeah.
Maybe he just couldn't fully conceptualize like what was happening until it was too late.
Yeah, he was probably in shock.
Yeah.
He might have also fell in the time he tried to escape, because also he didn't get a chance to escape because Diesel 10 had sped up the closer he got to Wretch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the next thing to say is, well, actually, I think one thing that blew me away. I think I will get to some of the other stuff later, but I reckon the next bit to talk about would be probably us. As we all got much bigger roles. You, Callum, were main character. Mavis, Mika, you got into you were involved in like the climax. Your character was involved, Mavis, in like the escaping, and Bear also had some lines as well. I myself got another role. I was Vlad's minion, who was where Toby was in the hostage area, that hostage area of that branch line. I think I'll talk a bit about how I got the role of Vlad's minion. So between the trailer of Wrath of the Rails and when we got sent our scripts, I asked Thomas 1 Edward 2 Henry 3 about if I could voice one of the minions that Bockiston had mentioned, and then I was then told that basically Bockiston hires a Russian mob to work alongside him. When the minions were mentioned in the trailer, I was expecting maybe it was those guys in the Great Heist, but so as for the characters, it turns out there was someone called Vlad. I did actually do some lines for Vlad, but then I found out that Thomas 1 Edward 3 2 Henry 3 specifically was going to do Vlad because he had a clear voice in mind for him. So I asked if I could do the other Russian that was there. He seemed okay with that. And even though there was like only 2 lines, I didn't actually get around to doing my voices straight away. But then he said that he'll just do that, and he offered me MrMerlinFan02's roles, which were the newsreader and the military guy. Now, I wanted to kind of expand to show like another side to my voice actor when doing this another role. So what I wanted to do was maybe have a different voice. I did have a go at some of these other roles offered. I tried did a Scouse accent for the newsreader, but eventually I couldn't keep the act up, so I decided to forfeit. And then because there was multiple military characters in there, has the internet gone down for Callum and Adam?
Oh, no, I'm still here.
Oh, good. What about Callum?
Callum? Buddy? Oh,
When I see the
he has to head out. He has to be up early tomorrow. So.
Oh, I see.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I'll let you, do you want to continue without him, or do you want to pick up where we left off tomorrow? Oh wait, I can't do tomorrow. I'm not sure actually.
Let's just finish up what we have now and kind of call it a day.
Okay. Yeah. So it came down that I kind of didn't have too much when doing those 2 roles offered to me. I had a go at Vlad's minion. I did like 2 takes. One that was a bit high, like a bit deep, and another which was a bit higher than that deep one. And then T1H2H3 actually thought I did a very good job of that, and he decided to use it. So yeah, so as for our characters, what do we make of it? What do we make of it?
I honestly really like that I got to kind of be part of like the rescue mission with Mavis's character. It was a lot of fun to do. And it was also really fun to kind of see excuse me, Dickens end with Diesel and everything. That was like, whoa. And
yeah,
that was really fun and satisfying.
I think Adam probably got the funniest line of the story when he said, "What we let Adam repeat this line?"
Oh, Jesus. Let's go kick some Boggins bum. Yeah, when I read that line, I mean, well, let's just say it wasn't the highest point of what I was expecting Bear to say. I mean, I was like this when I was reading it. I was like, okay, done that line. Okay, what's next? Let's go kick some. Oh, no. What? Why me? Why do I have to say the shot? Okay, do it for him. Do it for him. It's his last episode. He has to make a good impression. Okay, and then I just said the line. Embarrassing, but worth it.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, glad that Bear actually got a last line for the entirety of the series, as well as I am for all the characters, of course. I was
Yes.
I was fairly surprised that Toby didn't get a line, especially when he's in the situation of being held a hostage. Like not even an ooh, ah, or let's escape, something like that.
He got one online as a when Bogiston was checking on the two on Fitkins and Vlad. He'd have that line
Yeah,
saying
he did
that
have a couple lines.
you won't succeed with this.
Mhm.
All right.
I mean, there was that, but again, he didn't talk like as much as say the other hostage characters.
Right.
Yeah, so the fact as well as one reason why my role was upped was because I voiced a hostage character. I think Callum was very menacing with his take on Bogiston.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I'd say he elevated what Thomas 1 Edward 2 Henry 3 had wrote.
Yeah, I agree. Especially with that one scene with like Diesel 10 in his shed. Like, oh man, that was intense.
Yes.
Oh, was it intense?
I'm so done. Well played. Well played, Adam. Well played.
Yay. But yeah, Callum did an amazing role as Mr. Boggins.
Yes, he was. He did.
Yeah, because one thing I don't really get behind in almost any TV show or any TV show adaptation of fan-made Thomas content is I'm not really a big fan of the villain being a human. Sure, they are the main aspects because the people control the railway, so it makes sense that they are the main villain. But that's I've never really been a big fan of it. The only exception was Mr. Spencer from Wild Nor'Westers series. But Mr. Boggins is actually another one of my favourites now, of being a human villain to Tom's Friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, kudos to Callum for playing him that well, as well as T1E2H3 for making the script.
Yeah, so I something I mentioned earlier was a lot of the actors got better and better with each film. Me, I think I got better in my role as Toby, and also what do you how do you think my performance turned out as Toby, and also what do you think of my take on Vlad's Russian minion?
Well, I think it was very good. Although I didn't even recognize you at first. But yeah, very good. Because, at least you got to play a secondary character.
I was glad I was able to show another side to my acting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And as Toby, what do you make of that?
Well,
I
Toby,
really
no, you start, Mika.
no. Go ahead. I'm kind of in the middle of a coughing fit right now. You go ahead.
Okay. I think your Toby voice is very good. I mean, it's a bit different from the whole stereotype of Toby, where he's you know, he always sounds like this, shouldn't he? Takes you something like that. It's a lot more better to make him sound, proper English, because that's where he's from, England. So yeah, very nice to have and make him sound English again. But of course, like I said, that you when you did your Toby lines for Toby's origins, they weren't the best, but I think you did it quite well.
Yeah, I
Okay,
agree. You've grown a lot, like through working like the series, like both NWR Origins and the series finale. Like you've really grown a lot within this past year, and I'm very, very impressed.
well, thank you. And when I got my Zoom mic to I was able to sound at my best. At first, I was thinking not to use it because just to sound similar to just to be more consistent with what I did before with the other two parts of the story. But I decided to use it in the end. I think we could probably talk not too much more, but I think one standout scene in would have to be the beginning when during the escape from Diesel 10 and the bombing of Knapford Station, plus that music. What a scene that was!
Mm. Oh, you're talking about with
At the
with
beginning.
Otto and his lawyer.
No, just afterwards.
Oh, wait.
It's when it's where and it's when they're warning about the there's a bomb at Naffa station, the evacuation. Spencer's trying to rush to Knapford Station. There's that music. They're being chased, and then Knapford goes off. That scene.
Oh, I know what you're talking about now. Okay.
That was breathtaking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I wasn't really expecting him to go that far to destroy Knapford. Because I don't think anyone has actually destroyed Knapford in any of their Thomas films yet.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think anyone's done that either.
Let's see, yeah, the music was on point. The adrenaline was definitely there. I'd say, and I thought of another fault that was part of the story. I'm not quite sure why the station master had to go out the building and announce it, and why there wasn't a speaker from the office.
I see, yeah. The PA system.
I don't know.
So I think probably the two things we can talk about next is the rescuing of Douglas and Toby.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind, could we start with Toby's?
Yes, that's okay.
Yeah, with Percy, I mean, first of all, the location being the old Leeds mine near, Toyrek. I think that's... Yeah, I think that was actually a pretty good location to use. But it possibly was my fault, but I kind of thought that was actually Farquhar than the mines. But yeah, good location to use the mines. Though the situation with Percy coming up with that lie, that he got switched onto the wrong track, it was all right. Wasn't the best, but I mean, he had to break Toby out there somehow.
He came across us as though he wasn't confident.
Yeah. Though, yeah, who was the one who got ran over by Diesel?
Fitkins.
Fitkins, yeah. When he actually got ran over, I was like, oh dear Lord.
I know.
mean-
I was like, whoa.
I mean, yeah, Diesel being the one to kill him off. I definitely don't know how to feel about that. I mean, Thomas, well, it'll be sort of out of character for him. Toby and Mavis, they have side catches and side plates, so that won't really be that pleasant. And Percy, not at all. So Diesel just seemed like the only one left. But yeah,
They just worked. They tactically they got it spot on. Not just with like deciding what order goes in and like having Diesel there just to back up in case but also Harold flying in to drop dust on Fitkins and the minions.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's powder. And yeah, I think in that scene, Mika, you captured the and I don't think it's quite stern, but that moment when you say when Mavis says to Percy that he's got to do this, got to go over and distract the villains, and also when you were saying like surprise.
I forgot I said that.
Yeah.
That was a good time. I forgot I said surprise.
Yeah. I guess the next, and of course Fitkins was there holding Toby hostage. I can certainly see why he would decide to take Percy hostage as well. But then when Percy said, "I'm not alone," I think that should have been. There was certainly a bit of time for Harold to fly over, so I think that could have been the moment where Fitkins could have contacted Bogiston. But should we go on to Douglas's rescue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, where was he held hostage at again?
Near the it was near the area where Ted Diesel was on the bridge that collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the old flour mill?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because I was puzzled where that location was. Like, just confused where that location was from the beginning. But we don't really see that location often, and it was nice to see it again.
Mm-hmm.
And for the I think again some good performers from Douglas, James, Henry, Oliver to Boko. That was good. I think tactically, it probably wasn't. It was probably the least of the three locations, but I do think what was needed to be done was done well. Thumper, I think he had one of the funniest lines of this story when well, this is gonna be awesome, man. When he's talking about blowing up the building, having Donald and the policeman talk about that a little bit, and then once the distraction with to Vlad and his minions occurs, then Donald and James rush in, take Douglas away. Vlad escapes, which I'm sure in that time I'm not quite sure what happened. He must have dropped his phone as he was getting out. But yeah, and then it was good to have Henry on the bridge to disrupt Vlad's escape. And then, of course, Vlad drives off the bridge and his bus explodes. Any thoughts on that escape, on that moment with Douglas?
Wasn't that graphic like Toby's escape? But yeah, it was another good way to kill off the villain.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And now finally, the Bogiston part, which it was planned to send for Bertie to take Richard and Stephen Topham Hatt and the military. The military would then go and surround the building for backup, and the Fat Controller would give the fake check over to Bogiston. So, and then of course, I guess we've already Callum's already covered what happened there. But what did you make of all that?
It was epic and really exciting.
Certainly exciting to watch.
Definitely. But of course, did Bertie crash through the building to save the two Sir Tophams?
He did, yes.
Yeah, on that point, I don't know why, but in my mind, I was more expecting him to just crash through and then just go get in.
Well, as in like an ice cream band play.
Yeah. just something like serious but a tad bit goofy. I don't know why, but yeah. The fire around the shed was pretty dramatic, and with the SWAT team surrounding the place as well, that was all very well organized too. And of course, how Abby, Burton, and Gordon escaped. He just crashed through the wall. Which I kind of didn't really expect that. I thought they were actually going to find another way, like, through the main entrance, but since they actually derailed themselves, that was quite a, unique aspect.
Yes.
But yeah, the two Sir Tophams being, left in the fire, that was, well, I can't say I was 100% worried about them, but I can say that, I did, I did have concern that, how would they get out?
Yeah, you that's a good point. You hit the nail on the head.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Well, so I guess the final. So then, of course, it ends pretty well, and when it got to the credits, it displayed the cast very well. But when it got to Henry's theme and like onwards, when it was Gordon's theme and James' theme, even when there was like drums included and some other kind of instruments, as I was listening to them and watching what was watching the cast on screen, it really felt like that I was watching it in a cinema.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, because he's a T1 Yeah. T1E2H3 definitely has improved from the last 6 years, as in his filmmaking.
I agree. Here's me.
Any final thoughts on Wrath on the Rails?
Well, just
Sorry, go ahead.
sorry. Just a good way to end the series. Definitely wraps up most loose ends. Every character gets the right amount of screen time. All the villains get taken care of, and the aftermath about 4 years later with Newt Knapford Station was very excellent too.
I agree. It was a very strong conclusion to a very clever series.
I got to echo what you said with the amazing writing and the suspense and all. The cast did a fantastic job. I can't really think of a flaw with it in any of them. The music was on point. The tension was there too. Just a fantastic story. I guess now, any final thoughts on the trilogy as a whole?
Well, I guess the only thing to say is binge watch the entire the Engines of Sodor from start to finish, and enjoy it.
I agree. It's really solid.
Wicked. So, I guess before we end, I'll ask, how would you rank the 3 films in the trilogy? Whoever has decided their ranking shall go first. I'm almost there with deciding mine.
For me, if you're counting the entire series, I would say 8 out of 10. But if you're counting all the ones separately, I would say
as in bottom, second, first.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
For me, I think it just basically goes 1, 2, 3. So the Tarnished Legacy is number 3, then Phantom Saboteur is second, and then Wrath on Rails is the top one for me.
I can't fault that order at all. Mika, any thoughts, or shall I say mine?
You go ahead.
Okay, so I'll put Phantom Saboteur at the bottom. It's very good, but I think the other two reached higher landmarks. I think Tarnished Legacy is better as a standalone film. Wrath on the Rails is more epic in its delivery, and that doesn't work as like a standalone film. It's quite hard to pick a number one. I mean, I guess I'd put, just for the amount of epicness that was in that third film, I'm going to put Tarnished Legacy second, and Wrath on the Rails at the top.
Yeah, I think with me, with all 3 parts together, it's a solid 10. But if I had to choose between them, give each one a rate, I'd say Phantom Saboteur was a 9, Tarnished Legacy was a 9.5, and then Wrath on the Rails is a 10 for me.
I see.
But
yes.
All right.
The whole finale as a whole was a 10 for me.
Yeah.
You've probably seen people comparing this trilogy to other major film trilogies. Avengers was a recurring one. I didn't really like the first Avengers, so I don't necessarily agree with that one. when they disinclude Ultron. But I think maybe Lord of the Rings might be probably the best comparison of to this series, because it's got some. They've all got like they're all epic in like for their standards, and yeah, I've not got too much more to say.
Yeah, same here.
Well, I've got to thank you, Adam, you, Mika, and Callum for agreeing to do this. It was certainly fun to get this off. And for those who tuned in every now and then, thank you. I'll hopefully be able to download this from Periscope to YouTube, upload it there, and then like give the timestamps of what topic we discuss. So thank you, everyone. So I appreciate it, and it was fun, and I was glad to get to speak with you.
No, you're welcome. And
Happy to
thanks
be
for-
here. All right.